Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state. We are back. This is episode 71 of Innovation Unplugged. I'm Houston Blackwood, Workforce Director for this crazy bunch. Today in studio from our team is Kailah Dozier, Director of Marketing and Corporate Partnerships. I can't talk. But our special guest today is Melody Whitten, who's the Alabama Community College System Chief Economic Development Officer. That's a mouthful. And we're going to talk about that, what that really means. But we're so glad you're here, Melody.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you came in on two wheels. You were busy doing economic development officer stuff around town, I heard.
I was in town today.
Okay. And it worked out. You're like, I can't make it. I'm like, well, we recorded Tuscaloosa. Come on. And she was like, okay, got it.
I thought that was going to be my excuse to
no excuse
for a while. I was like, oh, I'm in Tuscaloosa that day. I wasn't expecting you to say, great, that's where we host.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it worked out. So we've had, this is our 71st episode. So we've probably not perfected anything, but we've told the real stories and had, great conversations and some things that I always learn something. So biggest thing we were talking before we recorded is, what does an economic development officer do, and specifically for the college system?
So this is a new position for ACCS. It did not exist before I took this position. And my understanding from Keith Phillips, who hired me, is that the goal was to hire someone that actually has been an economic developer, because all of what ACCS and our colleges do is workforce, and we do that workforce development work to support economic development. And that is not just companies looking to come to Alabama, but also our existing companies, and setting them up for success so they can grow and expand and increase productivity, increase profitability, expand facilities, add more people. So everything that I do is to try to help us tell our workforce story for existing companies, but also prospective companies that are looking to locate in Alabama.
This sounds like it's really complicated.
Well, it is, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to create a position from scratch. Sometimes a challenge in state government to do that, but it was easier for me, I guess, because coming out of an economic development role in a county economic development agency, I knew exactly what I needed to help my businesses from a workforce perspective, but also to respond to RFPs and RFIs for prospective companies. I knew the data that I needed, and I knew the type of support that I needed. But it was difficult to navigate that when you're dealing with multiple colleges at one time, because I was working in Shelby County, which is part of the Birmingham-Hoover MSA, and there were 3 community colleges that fed into our labor shed. So it wasn't just about knowing my community college that was in my backyard, but knowing all of the community colleges that fed into that labor shed, and how I could work with them and leverage their programming to make sure that I was telling our prospective companies and our current companies that we've got the capacity to serve you. So part of that was just data, just being able to tell a prospective company that, these are the programs that our colleges offer. These are the number of completers that have gone through those programs. This is the current enrollment in those programs, and then manually tracking even the K-12 pipeline. But to do that, I had to call 3 different colleges every time. And I probably could have called more, but I had the 3 presidents on speed dial, and those were the 3 I called. But that's hard to do when you're working a project and the RFP may be due tomorrow, and you're calling 3 colleges, and you're hoping you get them, and you're hoping they can pull the data and get it back to you in a certain amount of time, and that's a challenge. So the first thing I did in this role was try to become a one-stop shop just for data and for programming. So instead of having to call 3 colleges or 5 colleges or 2 even, that you could call me and I could give you all the data based on your labor shed, which colleges feed into your labor shed, what programs do you need to hire from, what are your occupations, what are those career pathways, how many people have we had complete a certificate or a degree in that pathway, how many people are currently enrolled in that pathway, and then telling, of course, the ACCS story too. So not only what the colleges are doing, but what the system is doing. So from adult ed to ATN to Skills for Success, all of the components that are kind of managed at the system level, in addition to all the individual things that the individual colleges are doing. So it started out as a data thing, and now it's kind of grown into what I expected it to grow into. It's been, okay, now that we've kind of got the data perfected, well, not perfected, but we're close. But now it's a matter of, where are the gaps? What industries are our economic development partners across the state chasing that we're not currently providing training for? Maybe it's an emerging technology. Maybe it's just not something that Alabama's ever had a presence in. So are we teaching what we need to be teaching to be prepared for what's coming? And then meeting with existing companies and learning that there's still gaps. It's not necessarily that they need something that we're not training on. In some cases, that's it. But in some cases, it's, I don't need the version that you have. I need a different version.
Sure.
And figuring that out. So those are kind of the main 2 hats I wear. And so, yeah, it's been interesting, but a lot of fun.
Well, you kind of touched on my first question for you. From your vantage point, how is Skills for Success influencing workforce and economic development efforts across Alabama as a whole? You kind of alluded to that a little bit in your last statement, but gaps in training or a version that we've used in the past, it would be, we ask the question a lot of the times, if you lived in a perfect world, how would this fit for your company? And so in your perspective, I think we're on to something, but you being with all the economic developers across the state, what is the word around town, about how potentially Skills for Success has an influence on what they do to support them?
I think there are still a lot of folks that don't know about Skills for Success programs.
Sure.
And so I find myself in meetings with existing companies, or even especially with prospective companies, telling them, the Skills for Success format, how it was created, why it was created, how it works. And I think that, number one, it's just educating, letting them know that it exists, but really focusing in on the fact that y'all are not trying to duplicate things that are already being taught. You're trying to address a need that the colleges aren't currently offering, but also maybe it's not even a format that they need to develop themselves. So being able to create something that's deployable statewide and can be pulled off the shelf to be used at every college, but not having to have 24 colleges create 24 different versions of the same thing. So specifically, and I guess I'm telling this story for your listeners because I'm certainly not telling it to y'all, but we've already identified, 2 of those things. So I was meeting with a company that manufactures wood products. And I've discovered in those conversations that there are some skill sets that they need beyond a high school diploma, but not necessarily an associate degree or even a certificate, but some skills and competencies that they needed their students to know. And in this particular case, this one company, he was already hiring FAME students and industrial maintenance students and machinist students from his local community college. And he was having great luck with that. His struggle was entry-level individuals that didn't have to have, again, a specific skill set, but he needed them to have some basic knowledge of the industry and what to do once they got inside the plant. So I knew that was a fit for y'all. So
it was.
We started working on building what I still call a wood processing manufacturing course. I think the task force is now meeting, and y'all have changed the name.
The name will evolve.
But to me, it's wood processing, because I try to stay clear of, we're not getting in the woods versus getting in the weeds. We're not getting in the woods. We're not doing the things that forestry companies do in the woods.
Sure.
But we are helping those companies, once it gets to the sawmill or once it gets to a manufacturing plant, what can we do to help them? And so getting y'all involved and pulling in some of those company representatives to talk about what skills and competencies do they need, so that we can offer that to students or adults or whomever across the state to get them good entry-level jobs in these industries. And then they can learn more and move up.
So when the wood products, what do we call it? Wood product machine operator, or machine operator wood product?
And I think it's wood products - machine operator.
So we had a machine operator, which was like a machinist helper, which really is dialed in perfectly almost to what that is, except the material is different. Before we talk about those meetings that we had around the state, how many meetings did you have with those folks before you said, okay, this is really a need and I don't have a thing for it?
Well, it took me a while to educate myself on the industry first.
Sure.
Because forestry was kind of foreign to me. So I think the day I called Julie, the executive director of Innovation Center, I met for probably 10 months to 12 months with different companies and different organizations. Met with the Forestry Commission, met with the Forestry Association, tried to drill down into what we're currently teaching in forestry, because LBW has the only associate degree program in forestry in the system. So really drilling in and meeting with Dr. Brock Kelly and finding out what was going on at LBW and trying to figure out, okay, what is the need and where do we fit in? Where's the gap, and then where do we fit in? Because the Alabama Forestry Association, they are creating and have created some training that tackles in the woods, that vertical. But I was told that we were missing the vertical where, okay, now the wood is out of the woods and it's sitting in a plant somewhere, either a sawmill or a plant, and it's waiting to be used and turned into something. That's where I was told there's a gap. And so I thought, well, that is the perfect fit for Skills for Success. It's something that can be deployed statewide, because the companies that I met with happen to be in South Alabama, but we know that there are a lot of these companies in North Alabama and Central Alabama. So, and luckily we were able to pull some of those folks in to serve on the task force. But I think it was important for me to understand the ecosystem in the state first, and then drill down into, okay, what is our value proposition? Where do we fit in and fill that gap? And it was an education. I mean, I had to really understand what other people were doing and where we could plug in, and what was a fit, and not duplicate efforts, because I'm a huge proponent of duplicating efforts and duplicating resources. So I didn't want to do what Forestry Works, the Forestry Association, was doing.
Sure.
I wanted to focus on what we could do. And so Stephanie at Forestry Works, we had lots of conversations to make sure that we were doing things that complemented them without duplicating what they were doing.
And I'll say, on behalf of our team, we appreciate that heavy lift that was, of multiple conversations and just figuring it out on behalf of the system, really, to help navigate next steps. Hey, shouting from the rooftops of this is a need. Let's rally the troops. How are we going to come in and support and help? And so we're a piece of that pie. You're a piece of that pie. The colleges are a piece of that pie, businesses, the industry at large, but everyone working together. I know we're in the middle of it right now. We're in the thick of it, but hopefully a year from now, 6 months from now, we look back and say, that's the only way it works, when everybody comes to the table and shares, resources and ideas and all of those things. So I'm excited that we're talking about it here, but then also to see how those businesses are impacted by the support they get from their colleges, and then ultimately those individuals that are going to get jobs in the industry that is growing quickly across the state. And we see that just by those small conversations that we had, but then one-on-one as our curriculum team unfolds and unpacks all of these things. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
And I want to point out that this all started because of a call I got from an economic developer.
There you go.
Oh, really?
Circle.
The local economic developer called me and said, I've got a company I want you to come meet with. They're kind of struggling figuring out, entry-level positions because they need, again, skills beyond high school, but not necessarily an associate degree or a certificate even. And so that's really the thing that I'm having conversations with the economic developers across the state is, don't just call me when you need data for a project. Call me when someone's struggling and you feel like they're not getting what they need. I don't know that we can be the answer. We can't solve every problem.
Sure.
But, this did start through an economic development, a county economic developer calling me and say, I got a company. I want you to come down here and go meet with me. And so that's how this whole thing started. And then I had to educate myself.
And that one call of that one economic developer is now impacting all the other economic developers across the state because that industry is going to get something out of that, which is a big deal.
And that's kind of that's who I communicate with. When we started working on this and, talking about task force members, I was reaching out to the economic developers in the counties that I knew had forestry related companies and saying, okay, I don't know all these companies, but you do. You know them better than anyone. You know who the contact is, plant manager, HR manager, production supervisor, whatever. You know what their growth opportunity is, what their capacity is. If they have a need, we need to plug them into this. And so my network is always calling my economic developer colleagues to say, here we think we have a solution, but you've got the contacts with the companies and we need to cash in on that.
Absolutely.
So they call somebody, the company calls like, hey, I'm struggling. And they call the chamber, they call their economic development person in their region. And then you show up and you take an outside look at it and say, okay, well, this is what I see. And they tell you what they need and you look at it from the outside. How often is there a big difference in what you see and what they are asking for? And not in terms of conflict, but just perspective.
I guess fortunately, there's not always a big gap.
Okay.
So I was fortunate to serve on a committee that was looking at semiconductor production. And we actually went to tour a semiconductor production facility up in Virginia. And I know nothing about semiconductors or semiconductor production.
Me neither.
And so the whole time I'm going on this trip, I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous about it because I'm thinking, I have no idea what they teach, how they teach it, if we teach anything closely related to that. So, I was getting on a plane going, this is either going to be really good or this is going to be really bad. And I got there and on the way back, the first thing that I told Keith was, the great news is we're teaching all this. It's basically industrial maintenance in a clean room environment. So you're basically doing manufacturing related industrial maintenance in a bunny suit. And that's really all it is. So it's not The skills and competencies are not different. The environment and the PPE is different. So there's been several conversations like that where I've thought, this might be a heavy lift. And in some cases, it's not. It's just a matter of connecting the dots, making people aware of the programming. But, obviously there's another program we can talk about if you want to, that it was a heavy lift and there wasn't a program for it. So
I think she's alluding to biotech.
Well, yeah. So I've got a burning question that actually comes back to our conversations with the chambers earlier, but let's go ahead and jump into the biotech because that's a hot topic. I had a funny science joke. Science was my background as a teacher, but I lost it. So
I don't believe you that your background is science. I'm just kidding.
It's hard for me to believe, Houston, but I'll take your word for it.
I've got a really good bar joke about peroxide, but y'all can't tell it here. It's about a bar. Anyway, moving on. So biotech is a hot thing around the state, 4 or 5 different major pockets, but it's not really like rolling yet because we don't know what we haven't met it yet. So tell us about that because it's wearing us out.
Yeah. So when I was in Shelby County, the Birmingham region had created this kind of ecosystem around the biotech companies that are in the Birmingham Hoover MSA. And we started this Beakers and Brews event where all the biotech companies would get together, I don't know, once a quarter and just network and, mix and mingle and talk. And, sometimes there was a speaker, sometimes there wasn't.
Okay, we didn't give the Beakers and Brews title it's justice as you just kind of slipped that in there. That's pretty cool.
Oh, I went to one. And they had like...
That's pretty cool.
They didn't serve in the beakers, but there were brews there. But it was in a very fancy, scientific-looking space.
Okay. Anyway,
cool.
Continue. I just thought that's awesome.
So Beakers and Brews became, this networking event. So what was happening is, we had been connected, or I had been connected in my former position to Beakers and Brews and Bio Alabama. And, we knew that there were biotech companies that had a need for a workforce that could address entry-level jobs. Because when you're a kid growing up, or even if you're an adult driving past Evonik or Avanti Polar Lipids or Southern Research, you're probably thinking, okay, I could never work there unless I have a PhD degree in physics or chemistry or something. It's honestly what I thought, when I landed in Shelby County and we started working with Avanti on their expansion. And so it wasn't until I kind of got thrown into that deep into the pool that I discovered that they do need people that, again, have some skills and competencies beyond high school, maybe an associate degree, but probably not. Just some knowledge of the industry, knowledge of the terminology, knowledge of the equipment, the environment, the culture, the regulations that they have to live by. And so while all that's going on, I transitioned into this position and still go to those events because I think that there's an opportunity there that we're missing. So ironically, Houston and I ended up at the exact same event in Hoover. I don't even remember what building we were in, but somewhere in the Meadowbrook area. But we were listening to Brad speak from Evonik about their need for entry-level positions. So, make a very long story short, we really started working with him, and he started helping us identify other task force members to say, okay, we need an entry-level, deep dive, but it also needs to have a hands-on lab component. It can't just be classroom. We've got to be able to prove that these individuals know what those things are and how to use them. So obviously we all started working together to create that course. Ironically, at some time last summer maybe, I got asked to help support a project. And of course, it had a project name, as they all do. You know, it's like naming nail polish. I want to be the one that names projects one day. But it turned out to be a biotech company, and it was exciting to work that project because I knew that while we were working this project, that all of us were working together on this new biotech, Skills for Success course. Well, that company actually announced in Huntsville in December, I think. So we now have a company that is getting ready to open in Huntsville. I think they're probably going to break ground on their site in the next few months. And so I think we're going to have a unique opportunity to roll this out and see if it will, not only provide support to the companies that we all know and have served on our task force, and they're in Birmingham already up and running, but also to see how it might segue into this new company that's coming to Alabama and establishing a presence. I was talking to someone one day about, I was talking to someone at Commerce one day about, I've got all these project names in my head, and I don't always know when they hit, because if I don't know the company name, even if there's an announcement, I don't know the company name with the project name. So she was looking at the project list, and she said, oh, that's Glaukos. So Glaukos was the company that's landing in Huntsville. And so they announced in, I want to say December, but that was the project that I had worked, and we had included the Skills for Success course. Of course, it wasn't finalized at that point, but we had included that in that project narrative to help them.
Yep. Huntsville speaks to Drake and Calhoun, Drake State and Calhoun Community College. But back up before them, Lawson State did a good job of getting our biotech off the ground, so we could see really what's in there and how it looks and how it works and what the next step is. And so I'm hoping to be able to soon, once the fall semester starts and we get through some of our registration software stuff, we can have a pilot in with Calhoun and Drake. And so then you'll have those. I don't know where Glaukos is going to build, but you'll have both of those schools, and even down south, maybe Sneed, from the Albertville, South Huntsville, South Marshall County, North Marshall, South Madison. How do you see that course being like the glue that ties the industry, the colleges, and the people together? Because it seems like there's always that little puzzle. You got those three pieces, and there's this whole, and I've learned that I think you guys, economic developers, are that glue that will wrap it all up into a bow and make them work together.
Well, we try. We try to encourage them to work together. We don't have a whole lot of making people work together, but economic developers are, I think they're kind of the unsung heroes of their communities. I think they're working really hard to help their residents find good quality jobs and have a great quality of life. I think they're trying to help their communities to grow and prosper, and that means having people that are working and making good money and contributing back to their community through civic engagement or whatever. But then they're also working with their businesses to make sure that they're growing and thriving and being productive. And so they are, to your point, sort of a glue, trying to get all those facets to come together. So it's a fun job, but it's juggling a lot of pieces and parts. And I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for other economic developers, but I'm not an expert at any one thing that all these companies make, but you are forced to try to figure out, if you've got a company that's struggling, okay, we've got to help them so that we don't lose them and lose that investment in that job creator in our community. So if it's a workforce issue, you start calling all the workforce people you know. If it's a issue related to transportation, you start calling the city or calling ALDOT or whomever.
Do you think that, hearing you say about all those pieces, do you think it's often a situation where the individual parts of it don't know that what they need is out there, or they don't know how to go get it, don't know who to call, or is it just they just don't engage?
I don't think it's that they don't engage. I think it's that in some cases they don't know who to engage or what's out there and how to start. And let's face it, everybody right now that I talk to is just, they are really, really busy. I mean, everybody is just, it seems like everybody I talk to is doing the job of 3 or 4 people. And you get so busy, sometimes not only do you not know who to call, but you don't even have time to figure out who to call.
Or what you're going to say if you do call them.
Right.
Yeah. I think you're right. I've seen that over and over again. You're like, yeah, I just don't, yeah. They're just afraid to make the call and sound like they don't know what they're talking about. But then you connect them and it's game on. And you never see them again because they're over there playing with each other, you know, training all kinds of folks and everybody's happy. And that's a good win.
Yeah, and I think too, people, no matter what your vocation is, but when you are vulnerable enough to say, hey, I need help. Hey, these are the things I know. You know different things. Together, we can figure this out. And so I think as you were talking in my head, in what I do for the Innovation Center, Skills for Success, the system at large, my brain is like, how can we support all the economic developers across the state? Oh, like we support Melody. Like Melody is there when they call her of saying, hey, I heard about this, right? Like they're going to call you before they call anybody if they hear something that the system is doing, right? So we need to arm you with all the things that the colleges do, right? All the programs. And so you started off your conversation with the database and what are we offering across the state? And I think that there's been leaps and bounds of progress of that. But I think that there's so much more to be done. And so it's a beautiful picture to kind of see how all these different players within a community make up the community, and working together, the community is served. And so, I don't know, it kind of gives me chills a little bit of like what it looks like to work together. So we're almost done, I think, with or up on our time. But looking forward, the next couple months, the next year, the Innovation Center's 4 years old. Skills for Success is really, if we thought it had taken off 2 years ago, last year, it's really starting to pick up. And so from your perspective, what opportunities are you kind of seeing on the horizon of, hey, we need to be looking at this? Or maybe it's an industry, maybe it's partnerships across the state that are developing, but more so of the opportunity of the impact partnering with the system. We are a part of it that we're going to have moving forward. And strap on your boots, we're ready. Is there anything right now, biotech we've talked about, wood processing, forestry we've discussed. Is there any other industry that you're thinking there's something there? I don't know what it is, but there's something there.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is AI.
Okay.
I think I've been having ongoing conversations with Keith about this because I keep getting pulled in to conversations about AI and what are we doing in AI as a system. And of course, all of our colleges are trying to tackle that independently from one another in some shape, form, or fashion. I just got an email this week that one of our colleges got a grant, a micro-credentialing grant from AIC, specifically for AI. And so I think that all of our colleges are kind of leaning into that and trying to figure that out. But I think at a system level, we've got to figure out AI. So the session that I was just at here in Tuscaloosa, the last session was AI in manufacturing and figuring out how we start incorporating and embedding artificial intelligence into CTE programs, whether it's nursing, machining, welding. We're all using ChatGPT to rewrite, a LinkedIn post or whatever, but I think we're going to have to really figure that out. So I think that's going to be the next big hurdle. So, and again, this is more for your listeners. Y'all already know this, but we were part of the Birmingham Tech Hub grant, and we were seeking funds to help us kind of finish and wrap a pretty bow around the biotech program, because we wanted to put that in a mobile training unit, again, to keep from duplicating resources of building out labs at every school. But that grant was not funded, but we were told we're going to get another opportunity to resubmit this summer. So been in communications with Southern Research about partnering with them on that. But we have been told by the organization that's putting out that grant proposal that we're going to have an AI component in that new program. So AI was not part of the Tech Hub grant when we submitted last year, but they are wanting AI to be a part of this next round. And so we've got to figure out for that grant sooner rather than later what we're going to do for AI in biotech. But looking at that, we're going to have to figure out AI in everything.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other opportunities that I see are just identifying strategic partners across the state that have members that can help us maybe collect information on their needs within one industry sector without having to have individual one-on-one meetings. So like Manufacture Alabama has councils, within Manufacture Alabama, they have councils like Iron and Steel Council. I think they have a Defense Council. And so, you've got a lot of those industry sector folks that's their concentration. And so trying to figure out partnerships with agencies, and that's just one of many, but trying to figure out our partnerships with them so we can make sure that their members are being served by us, by our colleges, but also keeping our finger on the pulse of, what are your challenges? And leveraging those partnerships to help us further engage with companies that maybe we're not currently partnering with in some level, but also what are we missing and that the company hasn't even thought to ask about.
Good stuff.
It's so
It's
complex.
a lot. Mm-hmm.
So
Very
complex.
good.
I've got a different perspective of what you do. I thought it was data driven the whole time. Just
No.
like pulling data and then some relationships, of course, but like those are some really far reaching goals, plans.
Yeah, because so in the time I've been in this position, there was not a one-stop shop for data. So for an RFP or an RFI, which is what an economic developer gets the first time a company says, "Hey, I'm looking for a new site," and it gets sent out to communities that have a site that fits the bill, and so responding with that data is one thing, but through that project activity. So I've been in this role about 2 years. I think I'm going on like 130 projects. And so what I'm trying to do now that we've kind of got the database where we want it, not completely, but it's close. But trying to look at that project activity and determining, okay, based on the projects that are looking and based on the strategic plan that Commerce has released and the target industry sectors that they have, the target industry sectors that most local economic development organizations have, what are they chasing and are we prepared for it? So it's kind of like the dog that chases the car, if he ever catches it, what's he going to do with it?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I find myself in this space is I'm helping the communities chase the car, but I'm trying to figure out, especially on the credit side of the house, if we're implementing a new credit program, I've been told it takes 18 to 24 months to get that through SAC COC accreditation. And so, if we can get in on that on the front end with a project notification, then while the company is putting shovel to dirt and building a facility, that's going to take 18 to 24 months to build, we can also be building whatever programming they have that we currently lack. But right now I'm not identifying a lot of stuff that we lack.
Yeah.
It's just making some connections and then in the example of biotech and forestry, finding out ways if we can do it on the non-credit side, how we address that. So I'm a firm believer that everything is relationship driven.
Okay.
Economic development is definitely relationship driven. I think that you've got to build some trust in the data and in the support that you're promising companies or communities. So I think it's all about relationships. But then you've also got to understand the process and be responsive to the process.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm talking about Keith a lot, but I drive Keith crazy a lot because
So do we. It's so much fun.
we were talking last week, and he said, the one thing that I think he said, one of the things that you've taught me in the time you've been in this role is that we can't take a typical educator approach to what we do. You're calling me and demanding a response and an answer and a solution, and you got to have it within a week. And we're not used to moving that fast. And so
No.
it's both. It's people and process.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, Keith has a new title, and it's Deputy
Chancellor.
Deputy Chancellor.
Economic and Workforce Development.
Yes. So
Big title.
when Keith gets to this episode and listens to it, he's going to be reminded that we need him on the podcast.
Yeah, we've invited him. He's just so busy.
He's so busy.
And he was the
so
boss
busy.
at Dothan.
Yes,
He came back, so-
Anyway, we want to have him soon.
Yeah. Thanks for being here with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thanks for the invitation.
I'm glad it worked out.
Absolutely. Well, this was another episode of Innovation Unplugged. Please go like, subscribe, and follow on all your podcast platforms. Have a great day.